Welcome to the Betrayal Trauma Recovery Bookshelf, a space for women healing from betrayal to reconnect with their mind, body, and soul, one page at a time. I'm Rachel Strong-Smith, a betrayal trauma coach who's walked this path myself. In each episode, we'll explore books that speak to the heart of recovery, books that validate your experience, offer insight, and remind you that you're not alone. This isn't about fixing yourself. It's about coming home to yourself. So, whether you're in the thick of survival or finding your way back to solid ground, pull up a chair. You're in the right place. Hi there, welcome back to the Betrayal Trauma Recovery Bookshelf. We are reading Betrayal, Trauma, Anger by Dr. Crystal Hollenbeck. I hope you got a chance to listen to the interview that I was fortunate to have with Dr. Hollenbeck. And today we're going to dive into some of the topics. As always, I'll be sharing my thoughts, my opinions, my experience, and always citing and referencing the book, giving credit where credit is due. I just am honored to be able to interact with these authors as well as share my own personal and professional opinions about the books and the content in them. First of all, this book, Betrayal, Trauma, Anger, is a goldmine. It absolutely is. So I basically got through the first chapter. I am all highlighted and have so much that I want to talk about and share. We can get into so many details about this. So without further ado, let's talk about Betrayal, Trauma, Anger. First of all, it's real. It is so real. Dr. Hollenbeck says that betrayal, trauma, anger is the complex and intense anger a person experiences as part of the significant and traumatic impact following the discovery of being betrayed by someone they trust and have a relational attachment bond with, consistent of immediate and ongoing trauma responses to the unfolding realization of harm done to them by an intimate partner. This anger is a natural reaction to the devastating injustice of deception, abuse, broken trust, and broken relational attachment. That is one of the most robust definitions that I have heard, and it is incredibly accurate. I think that sometimes anger gets lost in the shuffle of this betrayal trauma experience because there's some morality associated with anger or not being angry, and that can be cultural or individual or family systems where that belief developed. I think generally I see that in society, that anger is a moral issue to actually feel anger. I have so many opinions about that. First of all, I believe anger is a natural human emotion. It's just like happiness, sadness, grief, joy, they're just emotions. I was taught that anger is a secondary emotion. I think there's some relevance to that. But in what I was taught, the idea was it's a secondary emotion, and so it doesn't count. That's what I picked up. But what I have found is, it may be having some other emotions like grief or sadness or fear underneath the anger, but that doesn't invalidate the anger. I want to share about I'm only on the first page and I'm already diving in. This is going to be very deep in one page. So I want to share about what my experience with betrayal, trauma, anger was. I remember it really distinctly. The anger was starting to come up and I was starting to allow it and be aware of it. So I had angry outbursts, I would say, and I could sense that I was angry, but I still had kind of this idea that if I were doing this right, I wouldn't feel angry. And so maybe I need to do it the right way, whatever that was. I don't even know in my head what it was, but that if I was doing it right, this is evidence that I'm doing it wrong, that I feel angry. So when I really got into recovery, I remember it very distinctly. I'm working through a lot of emotions. I'm talking about it, doing EMDR or something like, or ART, brain spotting, those kinds of things, parts work. I'm doing values work, boundaries work, all of these things that are in betrayal trauma recovery. And I'm feeling pretty good. Grief work, even kind of in that space. And then I experienced intense anger when I started seeing the truth. So there was, I think, a buffer that I was keeping myself, and in the book, Dr. Hollenbeck talks about this, the betrayal blindness. I absolutely was in that. It was a protective mechanism that was keeping me from seeing some of the reality, because if I saw it, then what would that mean? What would I need to do, etc.? And so there was some protection in that. As I got safer in my support system, I had room to see the truth. So I started to see the truth, and boy, did I get mad. I realized the injustice of all the years of lying, of hiding, of betraying, of justification, of gaslighting, and I was so mad, and I felt it in my whole body. And for the first time ever, I didn't stop it or shame myself. Now, I'm not talking about being out of control and now I have permission to go rage and destroy people or things. The anger that I felt, I allowed in a safe space. So what I did is I had support people that I could call and have on call, and I did a Marco Polo with them. And I Marco Poloed, and I just said, I am so angry. And I allowed my words to come out, the energy to come out, and I spoke and I yelled and I allowed it to just come out. I didn't direct it to my betrayer, because that would be unproductive. But I did have a safe space to express it. And I remember after I did that, I was like there was a little bit still of fear of maybe that was too much. And my support person messaged me back and said, that is valid anger. Absolutely. I hear you, I see you, and I witness you. That felt so good to just be witnessed in my anger. I wasn't hurting anybody. I was just feeling it. And what I found after that was that I could find safe releases, sometimes journaling with a lot of and doing it, sometimes driving in the car and just speaking and yelling. There were just times when I needed space to really feel and process the anger. And I wasn't staying in it to, just stay in it. It was needing to move through me because I did experience injustice. That I did experience betrayal. That is a natural response to that injustice. So another time I remember I drove out into the countryside, so no people, and I was driving and I was in a safe place and I was safe contained, but I drove myself to a lake and I sat there and I yelled in the car because I still was just in case there were people around. But now I think I would be able to get out, even if somebody's going to be coming, I could just yell it. It's called a primal scream, and it feels good. It does. And it's in a safe, contained space, but I'm not trying to contain my anger. Something that was really interesting that would happen is I would get that anger and let it out whatever way that looked like, and whatever space that I had to do that. And then I would feel pretty exhausted actually, it was like I had run a marathon. And for me, the audibleness of allowing my anger to, that feels like a good release. So whether that was a yell or like speaking the things, like I remember saying, this is unfair. This is unfair. And hearing myself say it, I was able to witness myself also. So whether that was with a support person or my own self, then I can hear it. I have a witness. Another time when my husband was in a safer space, I started seeing some safety and changes happening. I experienced a wave of anger, and I told him, I said, I am feeling incredibly angry right now and rageful. You may stay and witness this if you can hold space for this. And you can sit and be here with me, but I am going to speak out loud the anger that I feel. If you can be here with me, you can. If you cannot, you need to leave, and I will find another space to process this. He was able to stay. And I, even if he had said he could stay, but then I told him this, if I see that it doesn't feel good to me, I will ask you to leave. So it was kind of interesting. Like I could feel that anger, and then I could own it and say, this is what's happening to me, and this is what's going to happen. I'm going to express it. Can you stay here with me? And he said, yes, he could. And again, I said, if I see that it doesn't feel good to me, I will ask you to leave, or I will leave. And I was able to express my anger. Now, this is not like a, you're the worst, you're the da 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 da. It's, I am so angry. I feel hurt. I feel the injustice. I remember what this was and what this feels like in my body. That is how I expressed the anger. And again, I have expressed anger with witnesses and me, myself, only witnessing that. And so it just is what you need. And it's about learning how to become aware and mindful of what you need in that moment of the anger, because it's an intense emotion and it has a lot of energy around it. And so sometimes it can feel, am I going to go out of control? What's happening? And what I have found is that actually the out of control tends to come from the suppression of the anger. For me, in my experience, when I would try to, minimize that anger, or like if I was doing it right, I wouldn't feel angry. What tended to happen is I'm pushing it down, and then the pressure, it would explode somewhere sideways. And then I would be shocked that here it's coming out at whether it was my child or my own self, or like, and it would come out in like harshness and, not how I want to show up. And so then I'm like, oh man, that's not how I want to do. And so for me, the cycle looked like, so I better suppress my anger even more. And for me, that never, ever, ever worked. It just built more pressure for it to come out sideways. So I have found, as I process my anger, I still experience anger to this day. Like my anger isn't gone. I have injustices that happen in my life, frustrations and disappointments, and it doesn't have to just come from the person who betrayed me. I still feel angry sometimes about what happened with the betrayal. That still can come up, and I still have some anger. Let's give it the respect, the time, and honor that it deserves. And so I have, protocols that I personally have developed that help me to just sit with my anger. And I'm not afraid of my anger anymore. I used to be. I used to think that if I was angry, then automatically I would be out of control. And so for me, it has taken a different shape, and I can also sit with other people in their anger, because it's their anger. Now, when I'm sitting with someone else's anger, if their anger turns into disrespect, dishonor, blame, hurling insults at me, then I am not here for that. Like, I can hear your anger. I can hear all of what you're feeling and the intense energy. I can hear that and witness that and empathize and validate that. I am not here to be insulted or, blamed. That's not what I'm here for. And that's very different than the emotion of anger. That is something else. That is into, relational rupture. So to me, there are two separate things. Hi. Oh man. That was page 1, guys. Okay, let's keep going. I think I'll give a few of these little quotes. You're not crazy. You're angry, and you should be. Yep. So, oh no, we haven't even gotten to the first chapter. That was the introduction. So, you're welcome. This is the first chapter, is discovering the deception. I'll read this quote. Deceivers are the most dangerous members of society. They trifle with the best affections of our nature and violate the most sacred obligations. That's George Crabbe who said that. Dr. Holmbeck, as you remember in our interview, she conducted a survey about betrayal, and she references a lot of that in the book. One of the questions asked in the survey was, after discovering you were betrayed, did you become angry with yourself or blame yourself for being betrayed because you thought you were foolish, stupid, or naive? And most respondents said yes. It's so interesting because it is the deception of somebody else. Somebody else is deceiving. And then when we are deceived, we tend to blame ourselves. That was a big one for me. I remember when it started to shift for me, I thought that I was responsible to find the answers. Somehow that responsibility lay with me. I think it's mostly because I thought that would bring me safety if I could. And that's where hypervigilance comes in. And so it was like, I'm responsible to find my reality. So I would stay kind of in that cycle. And what I discovered was that if somebody is choosing to deceive me, that is the information that I need. And there's so much more that is happening than just the deception. Like, we actually have a sense, and that may be why we feel like it's somehow our responsibility, but it's just not our responsibility to make somebody be truthful. All it is my responsibility to show up and feel and have the boundaries and recognize what I'm feeling. But that takes, I just want to acknowledge, like, that is not a small thing to even begin to talk about and heal. So just kind of put that on the back burner. But it's a very confusing place because you are being actively deceived. So how do you find the truth from the one person who has the truth? And that's where learning to tune into your own body and intuition and trusting that. Again, you're still never responsible to manage the other person. And that is its own paradox to work through. So let's just end on this term, gaslighting. Dr. Holmbeck refers to gaslighting and credits the 1944 film entitled Gaslight. That is where this term comes from. And it's that movie, by the way, great movie. It illustrates it perfectly, very triggering, but it illustrates what gaslighting really is. Dr. Hollenbeck says that as a betrayed partner, you will be gaslit by your betrayer prior to and after discovering you have been betrayed. That's a hard pill to swallow. It's really hard. Dr. Hollenbeck also references the bull metaphor. Just like the bull in a bullfight is kept in the dark and deprived of the survival essentials of food and water at times, you are kept in the dark and deprived of the relationship essential survival food, which is truth. She continues, you may have had several suspicions, unkept promises, been gaslighted, lied to, and emotionally punished for accusing your partner prior to discovery, sometimes over a period of many years. And when this happens, just like the bull is weakened and wounded before coming into the arena, you are often in a weakened and wounded emotional state by the time the actual truth is revealed. That is such a hard experience. It took me quite a while to understand that I was gaslit. There was some shame even for me associated with that. Like, what, me? I couldn't be. And I was. The women that I work with in my coaching come in this place of being gaslit, and it is so confusing. And in our coaching, what we do is we work on coming into our own truth. Because in that gaslighting experience, even my own emotional experience has been questioned so much that I now question it. Something that once was so inherent and intuitive, and depending on how many gaslighters you've had in your life, and before the betrayer gaslit you, or in addition to, it's like that drip torture where little by little by little by little, until you don't even know what you think, what you believe, what you feel. And so in coaching, it's such a sacred space, really, to hold that safety for women to begin to explore what they think, what they feel, and what they have experienced. And I am honored to be in that space with women, because it is a very vulnerable space to be, because it's to come back to oneself. It's very disorienting in the beginning, and you get glimmers of getting more in tune with yourself, but it really feels like walking in the dark, because it's been such a chaotic experience. Okay, we are at the end of my time, and I have loved talking about this in the beginning. I think this may be another 2 parts. We'll see as we explore betrayal, trauma, anger. As always, please take what resonates and leave the rest. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining me today on the Betrayal Trauma Recovery Bookshelf. If something from this episode spoke to you, share it with a friend or come connect with me online. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Rachel Strong Smith. And if you want to go deeper, sign up for my email newsletter, where I share grounded support, personal insights, and practical tools to help you reconnect with yourself. Remember, healing isn't a straight line, it's a spiral, and every step towards yourself matters. So until next time, take gentle care.